This hour is brought to you by Jeremy Temple Law Office of Bloomington. Personal injury, criminal, business, whatever you need, Jeremy Temple Law Office will get you taken care of.
Well, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin-yang, come along.
Well, come on along and welcome aboard. Indiana Sports Beat is here. Coyle Lee with you on this Monday, January 27th. On the program today, as he is each and every week, Don Fischer, the voice of the Hoosiers, joins us. We'll also talk to Mike Schumann. Lots to talk about. Indiana takes it on the chin against Maryland at home yesterday. They've got more road games coming up. The women's team on the road. Lots to talk about. Lots of other basketball action to talk about. And, of course, the passing of Kobe Bryant. Joined, as always, my running mate, Todd Leary. Todd, how are you, sir?
I am all right. How are you today?
I cannot complain. It's another Monday to get things started. Plenty to get to. People hitting up the text line already, and you can do so at 812-269-6367. 812-269-6367. Light us up. Questions, comments. Let us know what your thoughts are. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Leary Todd. This is, of course, Todd Leary, and I am at Jim Coyle, ISB. Give us a follow. Stay up to date with everything we got going for you. Complete coverage of the Indiana Hoosiers. Todd, man, it's a stunning thing, this Kobe Bryant deal. I know it's been nothing ever. It's all everyone's talked about since yesterday, but it's just so shocking and so sudden. Wow, someone so young, but it's just a tragedy.
It is. I mean, it's obviously, I guess, a part of life, and it seems like we deal with this every few years on somebody. And
Yep.
I think Kobe was awesome for basketball. Obviously, I mean that's just a given. But I think what Kobe was gonna give back most to the world was still in front of him, and so that's probably the most of the tragedy. I mean, yes, he's a dad, and his daughter is gone with him. I mean, how does that family even begin to process all that information? So that's just when you think about them and you're sending thoughts and prayers and that stuff. It just, I mean, it's for the strength and guidance ability for them to be able to deal with this. Because they've got such young kids. I think he has a 1-year-old or just barely over a 1-year-old. So, just a lot from that. But I mean, the saddest part for the rest of us from a selfish perspective is all the good things I think Kobe would have continued to do, not just for basketball, but for so many different groups and aspects. It's so sad.
Yeah, and he had an effect on a lot of people across a lot of walks of life. And like you said, it was the things that he was still doing right now in business. And he was really wanting to make an impact in life and an impact on a lot of different things. And that's unique. Not everybody's like that. Not everyone has it's not the ability to do so, but the desire to do that. And
right.
He had both the ability and the desire. And it was it's sad to see something like a light like that dimmed out much too quick in life.
Yeah. One of the most interesting things to me so far in all the coverage about it has been all of the different, now this is going to go back to basketball related, but all of the different people in basketball, the younger guys nowadays that are talking about Kobe reaching out to him and Kobe trying to help him and Kobe trying to do things kind of behind the scenes. I mean, stuff that you and I never knew about. We don't, he's not out there publicizing he's trying to help this guy or help, whomever it is. And it's not just all of the stars and the guys getting drafted in the lottery. I mean, the amazing part is seeing some of these guys that were, maybe going to make it, maybe not going to make it. And Kobe, working out with them and doing things that not for money, not to get paid, not to, promote his brand or anything. It's just totally secret and anonymous. And those are the things like this is when you start to find out how cool he really was. And it's like, oh my gosh, I wish I knew more of this stuff earlier, but gosh, it's just, I mean, there is just no way to look at this one other than just incredibly sad. And then to find out I mean, besides he and his daughter, there's 7 other people on there. I mean, you can't forget about their lives and everything they meant to their families. It's just a terrible, terrible thing.
Yeah, some of the unique ways that teams around the league, NBA league, found ways to honor was
pretty cool.
Shot clock violations.
That was cool.
And then a lot of teams were holding the ball for 24 seconds, for 8 seconds as numbers. So, yeah, it was very, very cool. Obviously, a lot of the players throughout the league affected, man. I mean, did you ever have a chance to meet him? I know your all's paths may not have crossed. So
Nope, yeah, he's not one of the we were very fortunate at IU that Coach Knight, a lot of people respected Coach Knight, and so we got to meet a lot of players, just random, had no tie to IU or anything. They just had a respect for Coach Knight, but Kobe was never one of those guys I ever got to meet.
Jake, I don't know if you have the clip on Archie talking about this yesterday. If not, maybe you can find it while we're talking. But Archie had a connection to
I saw that. His dad coached him. And
Tim pointed out in a text into the show that his dad coached Kobe, and Archie got to practice with him early on in his career. He really was talking about it in the press conference yesterday after the game. And once we get that lined out, Jake gets that lined out, we'll have that for you. Jake, you got that? Here's Archie Miller talking about Kobe Bryant.
Heard 30 seconds before I walked in here. And I'll be honest with you, as sick as I am about the game, I have no idea who was on the helicopter with them, his family or whatnot, but I know Kobe Bryant. He was a year older than me in high school. He grew up in the state of Pennsylvania. He played for my dad in the McDonald's All-American game. I mean, that can't be real. That's like the most sick, stunning thing that's happened. I mean, you're talking about generations of kids right now. In their generation, it would have been like Michael Jordan passing away at 40 years old. I mean, it makes no sense. And I guess if there's a silver lining here, man, you look at your players and, it's not the end of the world, obviously, that we lost this game, when you can really think about what's really going on out there at times for other people, keep it in perspective a little bit. But that's just an unbelievable tragedy. And I don't know the details of anything or who's with them, but I just, I don't know how to really equate it to our youth, but that's in my youth it would have been Michael Jordan, and I'm sure in older generations, maybe some rock stars, but that's just a sick feeling, sad feeling for a lot of people around the world, really.
There's Archie Miller, Indiana basketball coach, talking about the loss to the basketball world and the sports world overall of Kobe Bryant in a tragic helicopter crash in Calabasas, California yesterday. But
it's funny to hear, or not funny, but it's interesting to hear Archie talk about the different generations and how it would affect them. But you and I saw it firsthand yesterday with our intern Jimmy Sutton in there, and the age of Jimmy, he's probably between 20 and 22 years old, I would guess.
And Kobe's been retired for how long?
He's been retired for 3 or 4 years, and Jimmy was he couldn't function. It affected him that much. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean Kobe is that, he's the Michael Jordan to this younger, 20 to 30-year-old kid generation. I mean, he's the Michael Jordan to them. And so, yeah, it is that big a deal. I mean, it is, obviously we all know it's a big deal, but I mean, it's just interesting how Archie immediately equated it to the different generations. And Kobe's one of those people, when you can be related to with just one name, like Michael or Kobe or Shaq or people like that, LeBron. I mean, you obviously were one of the pillars of your sport and at the highest level there is. So, I mean, I don't know what else more I could say about it other than it's just awful and sickening.
Yeah, when you reach one name status,
in
whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But you reach one name status, you're way up there. There's only one Shaq. There's only one Kobe. There's only one Michael. There's only one Bird. There's only one Magic. You don't need another word. You know exactly who you're talking about. So, yeah, that's a status that few achieve, and he certainly did. Hey, we got a lot more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat. The great Don Fischer. What's that? All right. Well, we'll keep it here. The great Don Fischer joins us today anyway, so I'll tell you about that. So he'll join us in the next segment. Then also on the program, Mike Schumann today. We'll talk with Michael as Indiana took a tough one on the chin yesterday. Todd, man, we knew this was going to be a tough game, but it was. And there's so many, and we'll talk about this a lot more later on in the show. But man, I was, for the most part, I was pretty impressed with a lot of things Indiana did, because it was a lot of positive things. They took, Maryland punched them right in the face just repeatedly in that first half by hitting every stinking shot they threw up. I mean, we're talking about a 30% shooting team that was just lighting it up from wherever they were shooting, and that includes beyond the 3-point line, where they hit 9 in the first half alone. I mean, Indiana, that's a game for Indiana on a good day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. On a good day, then Indiana did hit 9 in this game, and you and I have been saying for a couple of weeks now, and I adjusted my number that I thought Indiana had to be able to make to win big games, and I put that number between 6 and 10, and Indiana was right there at 9 of 19. I mean, that's the number you want Indiana to have. I mean, Indiana, for the most part, the amazing part about everything. In the first half especially was, I mean, Maryland not just punched him in the mouth. I mean, they punched him in the mouth and then kept jabbing and kept jabbing and kept jabbing. I mean, they were making shot after shot. I was looking at some of the highlights again of that first half, and yes, they got off to a great start, and I think they made their first 4 baskets were all 3-pointers, so they were off to that start. But then when Indiana had cut back into it and got it, they were hanging around and making their own shots. Maryland started doing it again, and other guys stepped up, and Smith hit another one, and then Wiggins hit a big shot. Morsell hit a big shot. I mean, it was one guy after another that just doesn't do this. I mean, and it's Indiana's defense. Yes, you're always going to be able to say, hey, they could have recovered a little bit quicker or challenged that shot a little bit more, or you got to run them off the 3-point line. I hear people say that all the time, but then when you run them off the 3-point line, then they're driving in the lane, and then we got a chance of guys getting in more foul trouble. And I didn't think Indiana's defense was that terrible. That was a situation of, Maryland was making some big time shots, and that's a team that doesn't generally do that. If they shoot like that, they are a top 5 team, and there's no question. They've got the talent level. I mean, Jalen Smith is one of the best big guys in the country. Anthony Cowan is one of the best guards in the country. And they've got a pretty darn good supporting cast to go along with them. So
how is that dude's game going to transfer to the NBA?
Who, Cowan?
The big dude.
Jalen Smith?
Yes.
Yeah, real easily.
Yes.
Real easily. I mean, you get a guy that's that size, and he's more comfortable standing out there shooting it. And when you're – how it is when you're dealing with AAU or you're dealing with high school kids, you get those big guys that want to stand outside and shoot 3-pointers all the time. And you're like, oh my gosh, he doesn't like to be physical. He likes to stand outside and shoot, and he doesn't want to play inside. And in college, that doesn't translate as well either. But once you get to the NBA, that's what they want you to do. I mean, they don't want people standing in the lane. They want that lane opened up. They want guys to have the lane to drive, and they want you to be able to stand out there and make a 20 to 25 foot shot, and that dude can already do it. So I mean, he's going to get drafted high because of his ability to shoot, not because of anything he does in the lane.
All right, we got a lot more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle O'Leary on this Monday. The voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer, he's going to join us next, brought to you by Jeremy Temple Office, of course. Mike Schumann's on the program today as well. Lots more to get to, man. It is a Monday, so we got a lot to talk about. We're back with all that and more right here on Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle O'Leary right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dawkins.
Hey, this is Michael Lewis, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville.
Bad theater seats, cheap Halloween masks, my apartment, all things with obstructed views. Add to these large trucks and buses. 18-wheelers and large buses have big blind spots, and like my apartment, they don't always have the best view. Bus and truck drivers deal with blind spots around the entire vehicle. Always take care not to ride alongside or too close behind them. Our roads, our safety. Learn more at sharetheroadsafely.gov.
Hi, this is AJ Moye, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
And welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat. Coyle and Leary here on this Monday. Thanks a lot for joining us. And you know, we welcome in the great voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer, who's brought to you by Jeremy Temple Law Office here in Bloomington, 123 South College Avenue. It's right on the square on Southwest College, or Kirkwood. Call 812-336-7229. That's Jeremy Temple Law Office of Bloomington. Whether it's personal injury, criminal, business, whatever you need, Jeremy Temple Law Office will get you taken care of. Don, that was certainly a rough weekend for the Hoosiers. Man, what a ball game against the Maryland Terrapins, who came in here ranked. But Indiana did everything but win that game, Don. I sure hate to see them lose a game like that one.
Yeah, it was a week of which there couldn't have been a much bigger high, and there couldn't have been a much bigger low after the performance against Michigan State, and then the loss to Maryland yesterday. A very disappointing loss for this Indiana basketball team, but not disappointing in the sense of how they played, because they really did a great job of hanging in there against an onslaught of three-point shooting by Maryland, who's not known to be a great outside shooting team, but they just went crazy in the first half. And they knocked down 9 of 17 in the first half of the ball game from three-point land. And 3 of those, I think, were Jalen Smith's. I think he had one in the second half as well. But he was just on fire. But everybody was for Maryland. I mean, literally they had just about everybody knock down a three-point shot that started in the ball game. And in that first half, and of course they led by 9 points at halftime. At one point, we're a 14-point leader. But then in the second half, Indiana caught fire and basically did the same thing, handled their situation really well, got the ball inside to their bigs, without question, were able to knock down some critical three-point shots, had several different players step up. I think we saw the can finally get opened on Jerome Hunter's abilities as that guy continues to impress now. He hit 4 of 7 shots in this game, 3 of 6 from three-point land, had a career-tying 12-point game yesterday. And I really like what this kid brings to the table. I think he's a tremendous talent. He's got that it factor, and you never really saw it this year. I saw it last year when he practiced, but and the 2 or 3 times I saw him practice last season before he got hurt. But we hadn't really seen it this year. We saw a couple of three-pointers go down the other day, not against Michigan State, but the previous ball game to that, I think Nebraska on the road. But the fact of the matter is he's been getting better. He's learning the game. He's getting kind of his legs back underneath him, and he's starting to make plays for this basketball team. And if he continues to make that improvement as the year goes on, he's going to be a tremendous boon to this basketball team. It just gives them another weapon, and they've got several already. But the key here in the Maryland ball game, in my opinion, or at least the most promising thing in this past week, was the fact that Indiana had only 8 turnovers against Michigan State and only 6 against Maryland, and it gave them opportunities to win the ball game. Unfortunately, in my opinion, Jim, the big story in this Maryland ball game was the lack of some very good decisions made at the end of the ball game by the players on the floor. You've got to make the right play. You've got to make the right choices out there. And in the last minute or so, they didn't really get that done. And when you don't make the right choices on the floor, the next thing you know, you get beat.
Yeah, Don, I was all set to coronate him with that. That was probably one of the best performances I've seen of this season, minus the win, because like you mentioned, man, Maryland came out like as hot as any team can be. It was just uncanny how they were hitting everything. And Indiana took every punch that they threw and came back. And I was really impressed with how Indiana fought back in that game and came back in that game. Unfortunately, they couldn't finish it out. And that's one of the things that they're going to have to learn to do. Like you said, make good decisions down the stretch, because they put themselves in a position to win a really tough game, and they just couldn't close it out.
Right. They had control of the ball game. When they got that 8-point lead in the second half, they had a chance to stretch it out a little bit. Now you could say, well, Maryland had something to do with them not being able to do that, and they're right. But at the same time, they had the game in hand. It was poor decision-making at the end that made the difference in this contest, and it allowed Maryland back in it. Maryland makes the plays at the end. Indiana didn't, and they had a great look. Trace Jackson-Davis had a great look on that last series of plays, or on that last play, where he could have gotten that shot down. He had basically a point-blank look, and he doesn't miss many of those, but it just didn't go down. So, and you can't blame Trace Jackson-Davis for the loss. You basically blame it on what the reality was, and that was some decision-making in that last couple of minutes of the ball game that could have made a big difference in this contest.
Yeah, and having someone like Jerome Hunter, like you mentioned, if he can come alive, I think that the fans got a glimpse of a team that they can see as this season progresses now, having someone like that. But yeah, having Jerome Hunter is someone that they really counted on for that shooting that has not shown up. But man, oh man, when they have that, wow, are they a formidable team? Because like I said, they took every punch that Maryland threw, and Maryland was just, I could not believe, they're a 30% shooting team, Don, and they were lighting it up for over 60%.
Yeah, they were 31% coming into the game in Big Ten play from three-point range, and in this particular contest, they were hitting like 53%. At least early on, I think they finished the ball game hitting 41%, 12 of 29. They just had a phenomenal shooting day, and you're going to run into that every now and then, and to be able to hang in there despite that and give yourself a chance, that's pretty impressive. So I think Indiana made big strides this week. I really, really do. It's just a matter of being able to get over that hump, so to speak, and making the right choices. Hopefully they learn from this, because they've got 2 very tough road games coming up this week. And on top of the fact that they're playing on the road twice, at Penn State and at Ohio State, both of those teams are going to have basically a week to prepare for Indiana, where Indiana has maybe 2 days in between ball games or 3 days in between ball games. So Indiana's going to be at a disadvantage in both of these road matchups. But I'm feeling good about this team right now, what they're capable of doing, and if they can start making the right choices down the stretch of a ball game, this team is going to be formidable. I don't think there's any doubt about it.
Yeah, just a game like yesterday, even though they did not get the win, you sure get a lot of confidence when you play as well as they did. Like I said, I was really impressed with how they just fought through everything that Maryland threw at them, and they're going to need that when they go on the road. You mentioned these next 2 games on the road, back-to-back road games. Their schedule's kind of weird. They play 2 home games, 2 road games, 2 home games, 2 road games. That can get difficult on you.
Well, there's no question. I think the thing that came out of this week, too, Jim, that impressed me probably as much as anything was Indiana's ability to take care of the basketball. They turned it over just 8 times against Michigan State, and you know how good Michigan State is at getting teams to turn the ball over. And then against Maryland, they only had 6 turnovers in that contest. They also had a game or a season-high 22 assists in that matchup. So it tells you that this team is playing as a team. They're understanding their roles for the most part, and they're getting contributions from a lot of different players as they did in this ball game. I think everyone that played in the ball game for Indiana, and they played 10, all of those guys, I think actually they played 11. I think they played all 11 players in this game, and only one did not score some points. That was Demezy Anderson, who had, I think, the least amount of playing time in this game. So when you look at it, Indiana did a terrific job in regard to getting contributions from virtually everybody, but keeping those turnovers inside single digits to me is a huge factor.
Oh, it was crazy big. And they were also without the services of Race Thompson, whose play has just elevated and elevated. He's gotten better and better. He's so efficient with the minutes that he plays, Don.
Yeah, I hate to think that I forgot him, but I did. I thought they played all 11, but Race did not play. You're right. He did not play in this ball game. In fact, I saw him on Saturday at practice, and Race, he looked like he had no chance of playing for the next month. The way he was walking out there, he had ice on his back, he had ice on his front, on his leg. He looked a mess. And then when he walked out yesterday with the sweats on, I thought, man, this guy's made a tremendous transformation in just a day's time. But he couldn't play. There's no way they were going to let him play because he was still quite sore. But he looked so much better yesterday than he did on Saturday. So he's made, hopefully, he'll make that kind of improvement the next couple of days and be able to contribute on Wednesday night when they go to Penn State, because they're going to need him. Penn State's got a team that's got some bigs that are very tough, Mike Watkins being the main one. And you're going to need every single guy on this roster to be a factor. And you're right, Race has played really good basketball of late, probably played his best game against Michigan State on Wednesday. So it was a boon for his confidence, too, until the injury took him out. So we'll just have to wait and see how he performs and how he comes along this week.
Absolutely. And before we get out of here, I would be remiss without having you mention Kobe Bryant, the sad deal with Kobe passing yesterday in that helicopter crash. Just one of those iconic figures in sports, Don, that's so shocking when something like this happens.
Well, it is. There's no question. We heard about it, I think, maybe with 5 or 6 minutes left to go in the game, and we just heard a sporadic news report that he was involved in a helicopter crash that killed him. We didn't know about how many members of his family were with him or how many people had actually passed in this accident. Obviously, a tremendous talent. The guy went straight from high school basketball when you could, straight to the NBA before they had the rules changes, and had an unbelievable career. Obviously, the Lakers at the end of his career that was his team. He's an icon. I mean, there's just no question about it. He rivals the Michael Jordans and LeBron James, those kinds of people, in what he was able to do at the NBA level. Just a tremendous player. But the saddest part of this whole thing is his daughter passed in this crash. I don't know who else was on that helicopter, but I know that our prayers and our thoughts are with every person, with every family member of those that were killed in that crash, because it's such a tragedy.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Don, I appreciate you joining us this week, as you do each and every week, and we look forward to doing it again next week. And safe travels as Indiana hits the road.
We'll look forward to it, Jim. It's going to be an interesting week. Obviously, 2 road games, 2 teams that have had plenty of time to prepare for Indiana. Let's see how the Hoosiers perform. It'll be fun.
Absolutely. The great Don Fischer. Thank you very much, sir.
You bet, Jim. Thanks.
That's the great Don Fischer, brought to you, of course, by Jeremy Temple Law Office of Bloomington, located right on the square on Southwest Kirkwood Avenue there. 812-336-7229. Jeremy Temple Law Office will get you taken care of. Personal injury, criminal, business, whichever you need, he's got you covered. We've got a lot more Indiana Sports Beat with Coy O'Leary coming up right after this.
Not too long ago.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dawkins.
Hey, this is Michael Lord, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville.
Bad theater seats, cheap Halloween masks, my apartment, all things with obstructed views. Add to these large trucks and buses. 18-wheelers and large buses have big blind spots, and like my apartment, they don't always have the best view. Bus and truck drivers deal with blind spots around the entire vehicle. Always take care not to ride alongside or too close behind them. Our roads, our safety. Learn more at sharetheroadsafely.gov.
This is former Indiana basketball player Greg Green. Keep up with the Hoosiers on Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
I just talked to him a little bit about it. It's one of those things as a player you got to go through, but to be able to throw it ahead to your big guy down the floor, you know, it's about time and score in that situation, and that's part of getting better and learning. You know, not that one play was the name of the game, and obviously was a big play, but there were a lot of big plays. We had three major breakdowns defensively, guarding Cowan on a three-point shot when we already had a stop and a lead. I think Jalen Smith, you know, at the end of the game on his last ball screen, I mean, you're relying on communication all game long on ball screens, and on the last one, we're indecisive on what we're doing. He rolls to the basket uncontested. So that's on us. And if you ever want to know as a player why the coach is always screaming about talking and communicating, and you got to do it, it's because it really matters when it means the most. And, you know, this one stings. The other one on the night felt great. The week is what it is. We're on to the next one. I mean, this league is brutal, and you have to be able to find ways to keep getting better, which I think if you watched our team this week, or if you've watched our team over the last few weeks, we continue to do a better job, and we're getting better. I was disappointed defensively in this game, although they are very, very difficult to cover with what they're doing offensively. But we were better in the second half. I mean, their percentages in the second half at 40% from the floor and 25 from three. Were good percentages defensively, but they made some real hustle plays. I thought Jalen Smith was obviously a huge difference in the game on the offensive glass, his ability to shoot threes. And Anthony Cowan was really, really good in the game as well. Very difficult cover, as quick as they come. And, by the mere shack, they only had 5 turnovers on the road. In front of that environment kind of shows you their offense was running good. But, our offense was doing also a decent job. We had a lot of guys contributing in a lot of different ways. We shot it well, took care of it pretty well. But it's a game of inches. It comes down to a couple plays. You got to be a little lucky. You got to be smart. And I think we're probably a little less on those two here in the last couple minutes, or at least last 2 minutes of the game.
There's Indiana basketball coach Archie Miller talking about the tough loss the Hoosiers take at the Simon Scott Assembly Hall to the Maryland Terrapins. 1 point loss there. A game in which they had fought back and had complete control over and just let slip away at the end. You heard Archie talking about a couple things, making the plays at the end of the game and communication. Communication was a major issue, and we've talked about that in regards not so much communication, Todd, but just basketball IQ of knowing who needs to be where and doing what at critical times of the game, and that showed up yesterday that they did not.
Yeah, and we talked in the post-game show yesterday about, I'm going to specifically call out Jerome Hunter in this case and say, he's a guy that in that kind of a game, in that situation in a game, he's inexperienced and he's a rookie at that. But I mean, he's also a guy that can handle the basketball and can take care of the ball. It's a bad play. Okay, so the turnover is the most glaring one because we could have taken time off the clock at worst. We could have scored points. We could have gotten fouled and made free throws, and instead we turned it over and they hit a 3 within 5 seconds. So obviously that's the most glaring one. But you're right. I mean, Archie was right. The ball screen where they let Jalen Smith, the best player on the floor throughout the game and for the other team, rolls right down the lane and lays a ball in, literally just lays it over the rim. There was a lot of things. But you and I talked about this. We can be incredibly negative about individual plays that happened, or we can look at the fact of Maryland is a very talented team. They've not played that well throughout the year, but they're a really talented team, and they played by far their best game of the year and shot the ball at a clip that they would beat almost any team in the country. And Indiana not only could have won that game, really should have won the game. So you've got to take the positives away from it. We can sit here and beat them up day after day after day over the loss, or we can sit here and turn around and go, hey, how do we build on what we had, learn from it, and then go on the road and win at Penn State?
Yeah, I've got quite a few texts into the show this morning. One of those was asking, why was Joey Brunk not – we talked about this yesterday, but why was Joey Brunk not in the game at the end for rebounding purposes? I don't understand Cam's lineup sometimes. We were working the two-man game between him and Trace, then he just goes away from it without any reason.
Well, at the end of a game also, and this is something Joey Brunk has to get better at. What if Joey Brunk is on the floor and they foul him? He's a 50% free throw shooter.
But they're not in that situation, though. You're not getting fouled. It's more of a defensive end.
Well, no, it's really not, because Indiana had a 5-point lead and threw the ball away and gave away an easy shot. If I'm Maryland and Joey Brunk's on the floor, I would have fouled him immediately. I would have hack-a-shacked him. But you can sit here and second guess that. So the way it turned out, would I have rather had Joey Brunk on the floor than Jerome Hunter? Well, it turns out that way, yeah. But if Jerome had done a great job with the ball, and I don't know. You could second guess the lineups all day long. When things don't work out, let's turn that back around and say in the first half, would you rather had Joey Brunk on the floor when Jerome Hunter was raining threes?
Yeah. And I guess that him taking the ball out of bounds, it was not a normal thing. That you never see that. So why in that critical moment do they do things differently?
I mean, I don't know that we've been through that many of those moments, so I don't know that they did things differently. Right. I just don't. I mean, we can sit here and armchair quarterback it all day long. I mean, hopefully they learn from the mistakes. They made numerous mistakes. I mean, and it wasn't just them. I can specifically remember earlier with about 5 minutes to go, I can remember Rob Finney pushing the ball down the court and throwing it ahead to Al Durham, who shot a 3-pointer in the first 8 seconds of the shot clock. And Indiana already had about a 7-point lead. It was just unneeded. It didn't need to happen at that point. That's when you've got to walk it down the court, use as much clock as possible, and try to get to the free throw line. You know, that's what a possession like. I mean, think about that. If they take another 22 seconds off of the clock at the end of that game, I mean, you know, if Indiana still has that 5-point lead, you know, there's not a minute something to go. There's 40 seconds to go. And you know, all those things factor into it. And, of course, they get magnified when they get closer to the end of the game. But there was you know, numerous plays. It's not just the turnover by Jerome Hunter. It's not just the ball screen that they didn't, you know, go trap hard or lay off of. It's not just those things that happen at the end. There's a lot of plays in the last 10 minutes that you can all look at.
Yeah, Dr. J agrees with you. Totally agree with Todd on taking the upside out of it. Homer away, we weren't even playing this well 2 weeks ago. It was a bad final 40 seconds. We were playing good ball and shot lights out. Absolutely. Ryan from Michigan says, obviously all IU fans wanted them to get the win, and they should have won, but I'm not concerned at all moving forward because I think IU is playing some good ball right now. We will sweep this week on the road, so this game will be a distant memory. And also, gotta love Trace and what he wrote online yesterday. I tried to look that up. I think that was something to do with only thing I saw was him talking about Kobe, really giving him the confidence to take that last shot. I guess he was talking about Kobe or the crowd. I don't know. But he just said it was talking about Kobe giving him the confidence to take that last shot in the game yesterday, although it didn't go down. But I guess that's what they're talking about. Not positive on that.
You know, it's funny. I saw Tom Brew's article about how, you know, he's okay with that final shot that Indiana took. What do you mean okay with it? Indiana got a 3-foot shot by their best player. I mean, that they couldn't have drawn up any play in the world that would have gotten them a better shot than what they got. It just didn't go down. And, you know, it's fortunate for Indiana. And hey, you know what? Go back and look at the Michigan State game at the end of that game. Look at the shot that they had to tie it. I mean, Xavier Tillman has a two-handed putback that he almost could have just dunked and laid it in, and he missed that little bunny shot at the end of a game. I mean, you know, how many layups did Indiana miss in that first half that were point-blank, wide-open layups? I mean, that shot that Trace Jackson Davis got, he's going to make that shot 9 times out of 10. We would all – it's weird that people are saying they're okay with the shot that Indiana got at the end of the clock. What are they talking about? That's the absolute best shot they could have ever gotten.
Ryan in Northern Indiana says, notice Jerome Hunter didn't have knee pads on. Good sign of his health for Jerome, maybe. I don't know. Tim says, we always seem to lead and play well when we go inside. Then we start shooting and going outside. Yeah, they got away from that. But they got back to it at the end of the game, and it worked. And it was working.
Well, but hang on a second. The only reason they stayed in that game in the first half is because they were making outside shots. It wasn't because they were pounding it inside. So, but
it's because they were missing. That's because they were missing their inside shots.
Yeah, but in past ball games, it's been the opposite. They have hung around in games because they have pounded it inside. I don't think they got away from it yesterday. If they hadn't made some outside shots in that first half yesterday, they'd have been down 20. I mean, I think we all witnessed what would have happened in that game.
Absolutely. I mean, that game was getting away from them quick.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, the outside shots had to go down yesterday, and they were timely.
And to be honest with you, they were just very fortunate not to get blown out because that's not their game. Shooting out from outside is not Indiana. It's not Maryland's game either. Maryland obviously just crazy, freakishly on fire, but Indiana in turn also freakishly got on fire because for them, that was being on fire. They don't hit shots like that. They were able to stay in the game, fortunately, because of that, and then put themselves in a position to get back to their kind of game, their offense, and they did and took control of that game. And just like we've talked about the mistakes at the end, but they did a good job of getting back around to doing what their bread and butter was. Just couldn't finish the game.
Yeah, I mean, Indiana had 5 different players make a three-pointer yesterday. And if you would have told me that we were going to have to rely on Jerome Hunter making 2 threes in the first half and Rob Finney making 2 threes in the first half and Devontae making 2 threes in the first half, or no, I think he only made 1 in the first half. But if you'd have told me we were going to have all that happen just to be down 9, I would have told you we were in some major trouble. And look, if anyone has watched all the Indiana games, if Indiana fans have watched, the majority of the games throughout the season, and they're not somewhat, optimistic and impressed with what they saw out of Indiana yesterday, then I just don't know what to tell them because Indiana played pretty darn well, both offensively and defensively. There was a lot of really good things to build on. Indiana has had a lot of wins throughout this season that I didn't feel near as good about them going forward as I do in a game yesterday that unfortunately they missed a bunny little shot with 2 seconds to go to win the game. But if they had made that shot, this conversation would be insanely different.
Absolutely. Indiana now has to go on the road, but we talked about this as well. They have to come out of this game while you got to come out pissed off and mad that you lost. You still have to come out confident because you did a lot of things that you weren't able to do normally this year. And this team sees that they can do that. And then when they do some of these things, they're a pretty daggone formidable team. They're going to have to take those skills on the road and block out this crowd because Penn State is a place that's hungry for a team like Indiana because they're the Johnny-come-lately. And to be in the position that Penn State's in right now, they're looking at making the tournament and doing things that is never happens for them. And then you've got an Indiana coming into town. We know what it's like when Indiana rolls into Happy Valley. They've got a big old bullseye on them, and they're going to have one on them on Wednesday as well.
Yeah, they really are. And this is an opportunity for Penn State, to solidify themselves. And, they really want to defend home court. Every team in the league, has the mantra right now of, hey, we got to win our home games and we got to go try to steal a couple on the road. And part of that winning their home games is beating really good teams that come in there. And that's what Penn State's looking at this week. I mean, they're not Indiana, just because teams have not been winning on the road. We've all of a sudden started to see some of that change a little bit. In the last week, you're seeing, a couple more road teams win. I mean, I think it's almost 50% of the teams this last week in the Big Ten won on the road. So the numbers are starting to even out a little bit. The better teams are starting to show up. And if Indiana loses this game to Penn State, the world's not going to be crashing down. Penn State is a very, very good team.
Indiana's not supposed to win this game. I guarantee you they won't be the favorite.
They're probably not supposed to be. But I would be really surprised if they don't have a darn good chance of winning it.
Oh, absolutely. I think this is the game that if Indiana plays like we know that they can, and don't play like they're on the road, it really just depends on how they come out. Some of the things that impressed me.
Here's what you want to see out of this. Okay, I mean, we're all fired up fans because this is a game that they played great, they played pretty darn good, and they didn't get the win. So we're looking at this as fans right now going, we're hungry to get back out on the court. I'm assuming the players are going to be in that same position. I'm assuming they're going to be hungry, ready to get back out there on the court and make those plays that they didn't make at the end of the game and put themselves in a position to win a game. And, everybody is saying, oh, it's so hard to win on the road in the Big Ten. Well, hey, you can't go win on the Big Ten until you have the opportunity to go do that. And this is a big week for Indiana. This is a big week. Yeah, but this is a big week for Indiana. They got 2 of those opportunities right now, staring them right in the face.
Good teams win on the road.
They do.
Illinois is winning on the road. Obviously, Maryland won on the road. Teams
Michigan
can go on the road.
Michigan State yesterday went and won on the road.
So you're going, and Indiana's going to have to, because now they've given up 2 opportunities in the Big Ten that they really shouldn't have. This one against Maryland at home, and of course the road loss, which is not looking bad at all to Wisconsin, because they're playing some pretty good basketball. But at the time, Indiana was definitely the better team, and they missed an opportunity to steal a win there. So they still, now when you lose at home and you lose one of these opportunities on the road, boy, those opportunities are getting less and less as the season progresses.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big week. It's a big week for Indiana all across the board, not just for Indiana. I mean, these 2 road games, it's probably going to be, if they don't at least split them, if they don't get one of these wins, it's probably going to put them in that situation where they're going to finish in the 5 to 10 range of the Big Ten, because other teams are starting to separate themselves out from the Big Ten, and Indiana's going to have to win one of these games, in my opinion, in order to finish in that top 4. And but there's a lot of other really good games. I mean, you've got Wisconsin at Iowa tonight. That's a big game. That's 2 teams. Wisconsin's tied with Indiana right now. Iowa is right there, a half a game ahead of Indiana. So that's a huge game. There's just a lot of games with big implications on every week. We're going to be able to do this. And Mondays we're going to sit here and go, hey, this is a big week for the Big Ten, because there's so many big games that all these teams are so tightly knit right now in where they're going to shake out in the final standings of the Big Ten. But this is a big one for Indiana. It's one of those 3-game road trips that they've got.
Yeah, I mean, Iowa's a team that they've got themselves in a pretty good spot at 14-5. They're at home tonight to Wisconsin, like you said. They should win that game. They're a 5.5-point favorite if chalk holds out. That's another Big Ten win for Iowa, as they're positioning themselves for a nice little run at the end of the season.
Yeah, Iowa is, they've got probably the best scoring big guy in all the country. Luka Garza is he can score inside, outside. He's a big, tough guy to defend. But besides that, I mean, I don't know who you would say is better, but I think they've got 2 of the absolute best shooters in all of the Big Ten. And I don't know. They're just a really, really difficult team. If they shoot the ball well, I'm telling you, if they shoot the ball well, I think they're the best team in the Big Ten. If they don't shoot the ball well, I think they're middle of the pack. And, we talked about this a week ago. That's something Indiana fans are fortunate to not have to root for right now, because it's not fun to have a team to root for that they have to shoot the ball really well in order to win a game. And I believe that's the case for Iowa. But when they shoot it well, they can literally beat any team in the country, because when they shoot it well, they can shoot it. And I mean, they can knock down threes in a hurry and score a whole ton of points.
Tomorrow night, I look forward to talking about a couple games of the Big Ten. Purdue travels to Rutgers. That's going to be an interesting matchup to see if Rutgers can hold serve at home. But more importantly, another game, Michigan travels to Nebraska. You've got a Michigan team that has really fallen off the snide, a Nebraska team that's trying to hold on, but they've had their own struggles as well. So that's going to be an interesting matchup between those 2.
It's just crazy. I mean, you look at that and you would think, Michigan was ranked 4th in the year at one point. Nebraska's in a complete rebuilding year. That's going to be an easy win for Michigan. And then you turn around and look at it and you're like, wait a minute, they're tied. Well, Michigan's 2-6 in the Big Ten and Nebraska's 2-7. So you look at that and you're like, oh my gosh. I mean, that probably is a game Nebraska could win in that. And then the Purdue at Rutgers, it's the flip-flop. You look at that and you're like, Purdue's 4-5, Rutgers is 6-3. That's going to be an easy one for Rutgers. No, it's not. Purdue's never an easy out. Purdue has a game that can travel on the road. They have 2 good big guys. They got guys. Their struggle is shooting the ball as well. I mean, if they don't shoot it well, they're not going to have a chance to win. They can't throw it inside enough, to win games on the road.
Yesterday?
What's that?
I said, did you watch the major sporting event of the day yesterday?
Oh, the Pro Bowl?
Yeah, it's a joke. I did not see. I did not see a single snap.
I did, because while we were doing our post-game show or after the game show, it was on TV, and I accidentally caught myself see a play that happened, and I tried to erase it out of my memory, but I couldn't. I saw it. It was miserable.
Yeah,
that thing is loud. So what was the final score? Was it 150 to 100, or was it 12
dude,
to 7?
I literally have nothing. I no knowledge of it. I watched none of it. I don't know the score. I didn't see a score.
Is there anything they could do to make that interesting?
I guess put food in their teeth, because the biggest thing on Twitter trending is food in Nick Jonas's teeth at the Grammy Awards. Seriously, I'm like, really? That's a thing? I mean, they're like taking a snapshot a side tooth and blowing it up.
If you had to watch either the Pro Bowl or the Grammys, which one would you choose?
The Grammys, just to watch some songs or
would
some
you really?
entertainment.
Oh
yeah.
Gosh. No way.
Just see some kind of entertainment. I can't imagine any entertainment coming out of the Pro Bowl. So.
I can tell you for an absolute fact, I would rather watch the Pro Bowl than the Grammys. There isn't anything about the Grammys I could watch.
We're in the opposite. We're in the opposite there. Hey, we got a lot more coming up on Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle Leary here on this Monday, January 27th. Man, we're almost through this entire month. It's crazy. We've heard from Don Fischer so far. Mike Schumann from the Daily Hoosier, he's going to join us in the next hour. We got plenty more coming up here. Stay tuned. We're back with more to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make it tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lewis, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville.
Bad theater seats, cheap Halloween masks, my apartment, all things with obstructed views. Add to these large trucks and buses. 18-wheelers and large buses have big blind spots, and like my apartment, they don't always have the best view. Bus and truck drivers deal with blind spots around the entire vehicle. Always take care not to ride alongside or too close behind them. Our roads, our safety. Learn more at sharetheroadsafely.gov.
Hey, it's Michael Lewis, former Indiana University player and current UCLA assistant basketball coach, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat.
say lack of communication down the stretch. I know there was a couple things that happened, ball screen coverage where they got a couple open roles, and then obviously, like you said, we turned the ball over last minute, and then they got that easy bucket. So really just communication at the end of the game, and really we just have to settle down on defense and lock up.
There's point guard Rob Fennessy for the Indiana basketball team, striking a familiar tone as we heard Archie Miller talking about the same exact thing, Todd, a lack of communication at the end, which led to mistakes made and ultimately losing the ball game.
Yeah, I mean, when you get a guy that makes a quote like that and he says the same thing the coach did, when they came in the locker room that's exactly what he said to him.
Yep.
That's exactly what he said when he walked in. And so that's going to be the good news about that from our fans, all of us as fans' perspective is, that's going to be a point of emphasis in what they talk about, today and moving forward as they prepare for Penn State on Wednesday. But
here's a question that I think fans come up from a standpoint of, this lack of communication. Why don't players know who the guy is? Why don't they know who should have that ball in their hand? Why don't they? Because I know for a fact that most teams, back when you played or a lot of other times, who's supposed to have the ball. You know where the ball's supposed to go. They know these things, and how this lack of communication, quote unquote, rears its head. I'm a little that's a little bit easy. It sounds like we're letting them off a little easy, because to me, in that position at this stage, you should know who should be getting the ball, where they should be getting the ball, and how they should be getting the ball.
So the communication that they're talking about is more from the standpoint of how they handled the ball screen and the roll from Jalen Smith, where he got to lay the ball in. The communication is not the issue with Jerome Hunter turning the ball over and who had the ball at that point. Now, Indiana was getting trapped. The communication might have been, hey, guys, they're going to come out and pressure us. Let's all understand that and be aware of it, and let's get the ball. It didn't have to be said back when we played, especially because we probably had at least 4 people on the floor that we didn't mind who had it. And Jerome Hunter, I think later in his career, will be a guy that Indiana won't mind that he has it. He's a decent free throw shooter. What he did wrong in that instance was he got too nervous about the time, and he was trying to get the ball across half court. It didn't need to get across that quickly. I mean, Indiana, he could have easily passed it back to another guard on the other side of the court. I think the issue with him, he'd have been better off if he tried to dribble the ball across half court. He's not a terrible dribbler, and so the communication part of it is not the turnover, but the communication. There are some other things that happened with that are more communication is more of a defensive thing. It's more of they did not handle that ball screen. They were kind of in between. They didn't go trap the ball so the guy couldn't make the pass, and they didn't just hedge it and get back really quick where someone was there to take the pass away to Jalen Smith. Now, in the instance of where that particular play happened, where Jalen Smith caught that ball, that pass was way too long. There should have been a help defender that came over that was able to steal that pass. That's kind of the communication I think that they're all talking about. And if that's how they were going to handle that ball screen, someone should have been able to rotate and take that cut away from Jalen Smith. And so there's other things. It wasn't the turnover from Jerome Hunter that was the communication issue.
And something like this, it's no doubt it's a learning tool. It's a hard lesson learned, because it cost you a home win. It cost you a home game, which is that's tough to take. But is this something that is truly a learning tool? Is this something that they truly move forward? Is this just, man, that sucks?
It for sure is, because here's the circumstance. If Jerome Hunter gets in that particular situation again, I certainly hope he handles it differently. I think he would handle it differently. I think he would. They'll watch that game film. Here the worst part about today from a player's perspective is going and those plays that happened at the end of the game, especially when you were involved in them, and seeing all of the different things that you could have done differently. Like you can look at that scenario. We can all say this. It's very easy to say right now. If Jerome Hunter punts that ball up into the stands, they don't turn around and get a three-pointer 5 seconds later, most likely. If almost anything happens different than what happened, it comes out to be a different result, most likely. And Indiana has a chance to set their defense and get a stop and all the different things. So it just happened. I mean, they're gonna watch that game film and see all the different things that Jerome Hunter could have done with the ball, or how they could have handled that switch differently on defense. Or Trace Jackson Davis is going to look at that and realize how much he faked Jalen Smith out of his jock strap on that last play, and he probably could have dunked that ball. But they're going to look at that and hopefully learn from all that. Yeah, I would certainly expect them to learn from it.
And that's a good sign, because we saw a team yesterday that looked like they had learned from other lessons.
Sure.
They like, and I've said this a lot, and I don't want to beat it to death, but I'm just really impressed. I mean, they took every punch that Maryland threw in the beginning, and when you're hitting 60%, and they were hitting 60%, and you can stay in and fight, wow. I was really impressed, because Maryland could have taken them out of that game so easily, and Indiana could have folded so easily behind that barrage of shots that almost didn't stop until the second half when they finally hit a lull. But, man, Indiana didn't quit, and they kept coming, and it almost worked.
So when you look at the remaining home games that Indiana has, I mean, Maryland, talent-wise and ranking-wise and all that, Maryland is the best team that Indiana will play in the remaining schedule. They've got Purdue and Iowa at home. They've got Penn State at home. That'll still be a tough one. And they've got Minnesota and Wisconsin at home. On paper, on reality, looking at all of those games, Indiana should win all of those games. I mean, those are games that Indiana should win. And so, this one yesterday is a game that, on a typical day for this season, Indiana would have beaten Maryland pretty soundly. Maryland shot the ball the best they've shot it all year long. If they continue to shoot that way, they'll be ranked in the top 10. They're that talented. And so moving forward with the home games, I think Indiana should win the rest of those home games. Now they've got to really focus. They've got 3 2-game road trips remaining in the season. And by the way, remember I had told you they're the only team in the Big Ten that has that. There are 5 other teams in the Big Ten that have 2-game road trips, and everybody else only has 1 2-game road trip for the rest of the season. And so Indiana by far has the most difficult schedule when it comes to road games remaining in the conference.
And that's been talked about a lot. They talked about it on the CBS broadcast yesterday that Indiana has the toughest remaining schedule in the country. And I think that that's something that maybe people don't understand. That's why. Because while there are a lot of teams in the Big Ten that are going to have extremely difficult schedules, the way Indiana's is set up with these road games, that's what makes theirs that much more tougher.
Yeah, and I went through every schedule in the Big Ten. And there isn't another one that even comes close to rivaling having 3 2-game road trips. And I don't know if it's an oversight on the Big Ten's case, on the scheduling committee. I don't know what it was, but there are 3 weeks. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5.5 weeks left in the Big Ten. And in 3 of those weeks, Indiana doesn't get to play a home game. They're the only team by far that has that circumstance. But hey, let's stack it all against them. I want it to be as hard as possible. I want the most difficult schedule. I want it to be that way. And I want us to go out and prove that we can overcome that. And they've got, I'm excited for the week. I do. You love home games. They're fun. The crowd gets excited and all that. I'm excited for the opportunities they have this week. This Penn State team playing at home is one of the best teams in the country playing at home. So it'll be a good game.
Louisville's coach Chris Mack watched Evansville's Christian Lander and his Evansville Rights team in New Albany over the weekend. They lost 84-59. Now that would be, if New Albany was good, it would, and they're not. This Rights team, I'm shocked. We both watched them play. I'm shocked at how badly this season is going, and that's from Tim, and he says that he believes that Lander reclassifies because there's been some talk of that. I don't believe he wants to play another year for Rights. That doesn't sound that shocking. That may be true because this season is just going down the drain, man. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, they've struggled. I mean, I told you back when we saw them at Southport play against Carmel, like they're just a team that's not playing very well. And I know the rumor has been out there that Christian Lander wanted to reclassify and be available for next year. I'm not sure. I just don't know the details. I don't know if that's the right decision or not the right decision for him. I know there will be a lot of schools that will use the opportunity to say, if you reclassify, you can play right away, if you come here. And in Indiana, he'll have that opportunity. We know guard play has been a struggle for them, but they've got, they'll have a couple returning guards, and they've got 2 guards already coming in for next year. I'm not saying he wouldn't be better than all of them. I'm not saying he wouldn't be behind all of them. I don't know that. I mean, I don't think watching his high school team play, you can analyze that. I can tell you this. The kid is good, really, really good, and he can play and he can shoot, and he would definitely be an asset for Indiana at some point.
Yeah, we'll see if what he ends up deciding to do because, like you said, you've got Trey Galloway, Anthony Leal coming in this recruiting class for Indiana next season.
I think you made a great point, and you did this over a couple of months ago in saying, I don't think this year he has a chance to win Mr. Basketball. Just because everyone's been talking about the seniors that are there right now and all that. I don't even think he's really been talked about.
You haven't heard him enough.
Reclassifying is going to take him out of that. If he stays another year, I think he's got a darn good chance of winning Mr. Basketball. And
he's probably the leading candidate. If that's
a big,
the case.
Yeah, that's a big deal. I mean, he is so highly rated nationally. He will definitely be the leading candidate, and all he'll have to do is have a decent season, and he will be, Indiana's Mr. Basketball. And something they can never, ever, 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 ever take away from you is, well, I guess I shouldn't say that. I think there has been a guy that got to take it away from him. Let's assume he doesn't break the law and he won't ever have it taken away from him.
Indiana has never landed 3 straight back-to-back or 3 straight Indiana Mr. Basketballs. They're poised to do that right now. They've gotten Romeo Langford, Trace Jackson Davis. Now, I'm thinking that Anthony Leal is probably the leader right now, if you had to guess, as far as who was going to win Mr. Basketball this season. How much does the fact that he is committed to Indiana play in to winning Mr. Basketball? I mean, I know that some people are going to say, it has nothing to do with it. Well, that's crap. There are people that it affects, and there's no doubt. But I'm not saying it's a lot.
So there are some voters that it will positively affect. And I'm also going to say this. There's probably some voters it'll negatively affect. I mean, who votes for Mr. Basketball?
The media members mainly.
Right. And some of them are IU fans, and some of them are Purdue fans, and some of them are Butler fans, and some of them are Notre Dame fans. And some people it's going to positively affect, and some people it's going to negatively affect. I think
or is this the coaches? They're actually just voted by the coaches.
Either way, you're going to look at it the same way. I honestly don't know the answer to that. But I'll say no matter which one it is, you're going to have positive and negative opinions of it either way. And so I don't know that it's a big factor. I think Anthony Leal, I think where you come from has a bigger effect on that. I think him coming from we'll call it the southern part of the state, I think that has a bigger impact on him being voted Mr. Basketball than whether he's committed to Indiana or not.
Say that again.
I think a kid that's from a certain part of the state. So I don't think a kid from a kid from Indianapolis is at a disadvantage to win Mr. Basketball.
Really?
Yeah. Because you're going to get a kid, you're going to take a kid from Bloomington. Well, all the teams from the southern part of the state are most likely going to vote for him unless there's 2 kids from the South. Then it gets split. I think where other kids that get votes, where they come from, can impact, how many votes you get. If there's 2 kids from the southern part of the state that are in the running and down to the final 3, yeah, I think it's negatively going to impact both of those kids because the votes are going to be split.
Yeah,
you don't think that?
Yeah. I mean, it's very, very, very possible. I wasn't doubting you. I didn't hear it clearly. It was all. You talked about Sharon Wilkerson when actually vacated his title, Mr. Basketball. And I think that there was one other Kojak Fuller.
Kojak Fuller, yeah.
Yeah. His was taken away, I believe. But
and so I mean, I didn't mean to bring those negative.
No.
It
was just
winning Mr. My point in all of that was to Christian Lander. Winning Mr. Basketball is a big deal. You are introduced for the rest of your life as former Indiana Mr. Basketball, and Pat Graham everywhere he walks into is a former Indiana Mr. Basketball, and Damon Bailey, and it's a big deal. It's definitely a big deal.
Absolutely. We've got a lot more coming up. Mike Schumann from the Daily Hoosier is going to join us here next when we come back. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle Leary on this Monday, January 27th. Back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lewis, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville.
Bad theater seats, cheap Halloween masks, my apartment, all things with obstructed views. Add to these large trucks and buses. 18-wheelers and large buses have big blind spots, and like my apartment, they don't always have the best view. Bus and truck drivers deal with blind spots around the entire vehicle. Always take care not to ride alongside or too close behind them. Our roads, our safety. Learn more at sharetheroadsafely.gov.
Hi, this is AJ Moye, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat. Coyle Leary with you here on this Monday in late January, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Mike Schumann from the Daily Hoosier joining us now. Michael, how are you?
Gentlemen, how's it going?
It's going, man. It's going. Rough loss for the Hoosiers. We've been talking about it over the weekend, of course, losing to Maryland at home in a tight one that came down. But we've talked about this, Mike. It's probably one of the more impressive outputs by this team so far.
You mean offensively for Indiana, I assume?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to look for the reason for optimism coming out of that game, I certainly think that's it. I mean, especially, it's funny. We've talked multiple times on this segment about Jerome Hunter and whether or not he should be shooting threes. But, I think clearly Archie has seen something in him to keep giving him the green light. And it looked like, just from a rhythm and confidence perspective that he found something, not only in this game, but also a couple games ago against Nebraska. It looks like he might finally be getting to a place where he's comfortable on a basketball court again. So that's bright to me. And it's especially bright. I said this a while ago, and I know not everybody disagrees, but I think this team needs a wing, a guy that's versatile inside and out, can guard inside and out, even more importantly, which is, I think, the reason Hunter's been on the floor, up until these last few games. But I think, having that guy that, can play both on the perimeter, and if he gets a smaller guy on him, can go down low and post up, which he's shown an ability to do. I think that just changes the dynamic of the offense. They've got good smaller guards, they've got good guys in the paint, but just having that wing guy, I think, could make a difference. I don't want to get too optimistic about one game, but in my book, it was the best offensive performance of the season, considering the caliber of the opponent, because Maryland is a really good defensive team.
Todd, you were once a shooter. Just kidding.
Once a shooter, always a shooter.
I know. I'm just teasing. Are there guys that you've seen that in practice just are lights out, but they get into a game and for whatever reason it's just not quite there?
No,
it takes a while to get to where this point maybe Jerome has hopefully finally gotten to.
Here is part of a difference. It is the game speed. I don't even know how to make it so that someone can understand this that hasn't gone through it. But the game speed is so difficult to explain, and how much different it really is. And you get a different feel. Look, I've shot free throws my whole life, and you shoot them from the same distance. And I could stand out there. I could walk out to any gym today and shoot and make 95 out of 100. But then you get in a game, and it's just a little different. Like you can't feel your fingertips quite the same, and nothing's quite the same when you're playing in a game. And so until you've done that enough times, and you've kind of gotten the feel and gotten the rhythm of what it's really like it's funny. Like I can remember as a freshman, one of my first shots I shot, and I thought it was from the wing. I thought it was a great shot, and it went over the basket and hit the backboard. Like it would have easily been an air ball if it hadn't have caught the backboard. But it felt good when I shot it. It's just a little bit, you got a little bit more adrenaline and a little bit more momentum, and everything is a little bit different. And guys can't be, great shooters in practice and then not have it, eventually translate over into the game. Now there's guys who are better than they are in a game. Jerome Hunter has a really weird form. He shoots the ball as a right-handed player, he shoots it from the left side of his face. So he's never going to have a form that I think he's never going to be an unbelievable shooter, but he's adequate and he can make them. Here's what I don't want it to become. I don't want Jerome Hunter to become just a three-point shooter. When he was the most valuable to Indiana, we talked about this, was when he was slashing in the lane. He made a couple little runners. He went 5 for 6 from the free throw line. He got himself involved in other ways other than just making three-pointers, and that's what I don't want him to become, an outside stand-still shooter.
And hopefully, if the scouting report on him changes, I mean, I think it's been clear everybody's been giving him that space to shoot. But I think if they start to close out on him hard, which I suspect they will now, that's going to be you're exactly right, Todd. That's the next step for him, is to recognize that. And that's to me where his true versatility comes into play, because I do think he's a guy that can slash to the basket. I think he can beat the certain guys off the bounce. And so, if he becomes that player that I think he can be. I mean, we all have to remember he's a redshirt freshman that hadn't really played basketball in a year and a half. So I think the future is really bright. I mean, Todd, can you see anything when you watched him over the last couple of games that looks different, or is it just too hard to see that specific level of detail?
You mean different from his shot, or you mean
shot or confidence or rhythm or anything?
I think the confidence alone. Here's where all of these guys should have enormous confidence. Even Demezy Anderson is, as poorly as they have shot in the ball. I mean, if you heard Tom Izzo's post-game press conference, I mean, he's sitting there going, how many times did he repeat over and over again? I mean, the guy shoots 12% from the three-point line, and he made a shot against us. So, I mean, other people see the numbers also. And we watch it closer than anyone because we see every single game. And Archie Miller is not pulling the reins back on these guys, telling them, hey, you're not allowed to shoot three-pointers anymore, because they do it game in and game out. They come in the game and they start firing them from everywhere. And so the confidence level eventually should get there, because they should be able to say, hey, look, they're not going to stop me from shooting them. So they shouldn't have that going through their mind. I mean, here's something that I like to tell younger kids, and here's something that I think Indiana could benefit from, even though they're not younger kids. I mean, they can still learn from this, is, the most difficult shots obviously are the ones farther away from the basket. And so when you come in a game, and I'm a shooter, I would consider myself a three-point shooter. But when you go out and you warm up and you practice, everyone will tell you to start out practicing, shooting little shots inside the lane to get your form going, or shoot from the free throw line, or, do something that gets your form going and all that. Well, I feel the same way about coming into a game. When you come in the game, when a guy's very first shot, other than Devontae Green, when a guy's very first shot is a three-pointer, I don't feel that great about it, because I want him to get in the rhythm of the offense, and I want him to shoot a couple of shots that are 12 feet, 15 feet. If he even gets to the free throw line before he ends up shooting a three-pointer, I feel better about him being involved in his chances of making a three-pointer. Devontae is the one exception to that. I think Devontae could shoot from the second he walks in the gym. I think he can start making threes. But everybody else, I want him to get involved in the rhythm of the offense before they get out there and start shooting threes. That's all I got to say about that.
Okay, Forrest. Run, Forrest, run.
So what do you guys think about, obviously on the mental side, that game had to just be about as tough to process as you can imagine. Not only giving it away in the last couple of minutes, also the stuff that went on afterwards with Jalen Smith, celebrating on the floor. I mean, how hard is it going to be for these guys to turn around and go on the road here for two games to Penn State and Ohio State, two games that, they could win if they play well, but they could clearly lose.
I don't understand what the big deal that they're making about Jalen Smith. I mean, I'd be happy too if I came in and did what they did. I'd be ecstatic. I mean, unless I've missed it, he wasn't a complete jerk, was he?
Yeah, he was a complete jerk. I mean,
okay, well there you go.
I don't know how.
What did he do? Did I miss something?
I mean, after the buzzer went off, Maryland understandably kind of rushed the court and had a little celebration. But then Smith kind of turned it into yelling at the crowd, and it was a clear back and forth with, I don't know if it was certain people in the crowd or just him, engaging the crowd. And he started
mainly, I think it was the students.
Yeah, it was definitely that side of the court, and he started pointing at the IU logo on the center of the court and saying, "This is my house. This is my house." And it was for more than just a second or two. It was going on for a good 30 seconds, and Mark Turgeon then ran to the center of the court and literally drug him off the court. So clearly Turgeon saw something. They both apologized.
And I have no problem with that. That I'm like, let Turgeon take care of that, which he obviously will. So that just doesn't bother me. I'm like, you know what? If you want to stop them, then beat their ass. That'll stop them.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Like, I can get as heated as anybody in those scenarios, and I can dislike a player for that or whatever. I love the way Mark Turgeon handled it. Not only did he go out on the floor and grab him and take care of that, he apologized for it in the press conference. He said that he and both Jalen Smith apologized to Archie Miller. And then, Jalen Smith sent out a tweet, whether, apologizing and saying he got caught up in the heat of the moment, whether that was forced or not forced. I'll tell you this. I've watched that kid play enough. If if I wanted to try to hate on him, I think I could. But he's not a bad kid. He got caught up in the heat of the moment. It's a big deal. Look, Indiana, I take it as a compliment. I really do. That's how arrogant I am in this. He's that excited to beat Indiana at Indiana. I take that as a compliment. That's how arrogant I am about it.
Yeah, the main reason why I bring it up is, I agree when I see a kid do that. I see a competitor. I see a guy that if he's on your team, you're thrilled to have him fighting that hard. But Indiana hasn't always had those kind of players in the last couple of years, and just to have that happen on their home court, compounding the amazing difficulty of the loss itself, it just goes back to my point is, how are they going to process this now, trying to go out on the road and win a couple games this week with the disappointment and frustration of having that all happen yesterday.
I think they need to take a little of the attitude that Jalen's got and take it with him on the road that he brought to Assembly Hall.
I agree.
And you know what, in this scenario, like, hey, if we want to turn something I've used as a negative kind of into a positive a little bit, I still think we've got some cool guys on this team, and I don't think that this loss is going to negatively affect some of them the way that it affects us as fans. Like, I'm still thinking about it this morning. I'm still, I know how close we were and how big of a deal that win would have been and all that. Look, these guys have got to move on today. They'll watch that game film for probably 20 or 30 minutes. But then they don't have time to mess around with it. They got to turn around and start dealing with Penn State. Penn State's not a team they've played yet this year. Maryland, they had already played once, so they kind of know stuff about them and their game plan and all that. Penn State's not. This is a brand new team. They got all new schemes, all new players, all new personnel. After 20 or 30 minutes into practice today, that'll be out of their mind, and they'll be dealing with Penn State. And that's part of the benefit of being a 20-year-old kid. And, some of us, we can all sit here and we'll still be talking about this game tomorrow. We'll probably still be talking about it all the way leading up until they play on Wednesday. But once Wednesday comes around, these players will have it totally out of their mind.
Yeah, and they're going to need to because Penn State, a team that is playing pretty daggone well, and like everybody else in the Big Ten, they play well at home especially. But Indiana, they're looking – I said this earlier. Indiana's going to have a big bullseye on their back because Penn State is enjoying a breakout season for them. We saw it coming in the last season or two, but Lamar Stevens staying there. They're really, really a good program, and Indiana's going to have all that they want in competing against the Lions.
Yeah, when I watch them play, I see almost a replica of Rutgers, just a really intense defensive team that just plays really physical. I call it the foul on every play because the refs aren't going to call them all type of defense. I mean, it's constant, arm bars and hip checks and everything they can do to get a physical advantage on you, which, works for them. I think Pat Chambers has done an amazing job with that program, considering, what it is historically and where he's got it to. They've had a lot of patience with him. I think he's in his 7th or 8th year there and have not made the NCAA tournament, but have progressed, won the NIT a couple of years ago, and they're sticking with him. It's a interesting model of patience that you don't always see in college basketball. But I think Indiana's going to, have to find a way to match their physicality and toughness. And like we saw against Rutgers, probably it's just going to come down to do you make some shots like they've been making the last few games here.
Absolutely. Mike, you got anything the fans need to know about to go to?
Yeah, I'm going to start looking at some of the recruits that were there yesterday because there was a lot of new faces, a lot of new names that I don't think people are familiar with. So
talk about some of those.
Yeah, Peyton Sparks was a guy out of Winchester, Indiana that I don't think too many people are talking about in a loaded class of 2021. Guy that's putting up huge numbers this year. Logan Duncombe is out of Cincinnati Moeller, a kid that Indiana has offered already. Really big, tough, physical kid that likes to rebound and play defense, something that Indiana's going to need from a big kid down the road. Aminu Muhammad out of Missouri is just an elite scorer. I think he's averaging nearly 40 a game, 5-star recruit. Indiana is probably one of the group of 5 that's a real contender there, 2021 guard, and a few others that we'll talk about this week as well.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it, man. Make sure you check it out at thedailyhoosier.com. Free IU content. Mike Schumann, I can't thank you enough. Appreciate you.
All right, guys. Appreciate it.
See you, buddy.
There's Mike Schumann from the Daily Hoosier joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle Leary. We got more to go before we close the show out. Stay tuned. We're coming back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lewis, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville.
Bad theater seats, cheap Halloween masks, my apartment, all things with obstructed views. Add to these large trucks and buses. 18-wheelers and large buses have big blind spots, and like my apartment, they don't always have the best view. Bus and truck drivers deal with blind spots around the entire vehicle. Always take care not to ride alongside or too close behind them. Our roads, our safety. Learn more at sharetheroadsafely.gov.
This is former Indiana basketball player Greg Green. Keep up with the Hoosiers on Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat. Coyle Leary with you here on this Monday, January 27th, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Long weekend, loss for Indiana as they lose to Maryland at home. The women are on in the action tonight at Simon Scott Assembly Hall. Todd, they take on.
Speaking of need to get back on track.
Well, they did. They got a road win against Penn State last week to get off the schneid. So they need to stay on that winning side and keep that moving as Minnesota comes to visit Simon Scott Assembly Hall tonight at 6 o'clock. So if you're out and about, go check out the Indiana women's team. The new rankings hasn't come out yet, so we'll see where they end up at. But they may not move too much this week.
Think there's any possibility the Hoosiers sneak in the rankings?
The men?
Yeah.
After yesterday? No.
Yeah.
You can't lose at home and get ranked. That's not happening.
To a ranked team, you can.
No, not when.
I'm with you. It's probably not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. And not only that,
and
like I said, it's not going to happen this season now. I really don't believe it will.
Well, Arizona, what's that, Jake?
Lost that determination if they can actually get in there.
Yeah, Arizona is 22nd. They got beat, so they'll be getting knocked out. I'm trying to see anybody else. Memphis will get knocked out. No, they won't get up there. Wichita State would get in before them. Northern Iowa, I think got beat.
Tim with a text into the show asking, when are we going to say Bob Knight Court, ? I'm not sure what you mean because the court is already called Branch McCracken Court. Branch McCracken won 2 national championships for Indiana. The court is named after him already. So
Look,
there you go.
I love Bob Knight. I owe so much to Bob Knight, as do so many Indiana fans. But let's just talk about this team. Let's just talk about what's going on. Why are we trying to drag stuff into it? Come on, people. Live in 2020.
Exactly. We're back to it. But yeah, Indiana now, I don't know. They've just got to.
They're going to win one of these 2 games. They're going to win one of these 2 games. I really believe
they almost have to after losing at home. You have to do that to kind of. I don't know that it's an equal. I don't know it equals out. Even if you do that, I still think it's by losing at home is not as good as winning on the road. I mean, I think it hurts you more than winning on the road gives you, depending on where that road win is.
Other than Michigan State,
yes,
or Maryland,
right.
I agree with you.
Right.
If it was any other home loss, if they lose at home to Purdue or Iowa or Penn State or Minnesota or Wisconsin, those are the remaining home games. I totally agree with what you're saying. Maryland it's right on the border.
Right, but I agree. I agree with you. It's one of those that's not like if they get lost, you're like shocked. This is not a shocker.
Right. So here are the 6 remaining road games: at Penn State, at Ohio State. That's the 2 this week. 2 weeks from now, it's at Michigan, at Minnesota. Very possibly could win both of those. Possibly. Then the last 2, the second to last week of the season, are at Purdue, at Illinois. Man, I don't know about at Illinois. That's going to be a toughie. That's going to be a toughie.
Yeah, your tune has certainly changed on that one.
That one for sure. I mean, Illinois, it's going to be a toughie, but also
Illinois is one of the teams that's going on the road and getting wins.
They are.
That's the stuff a Big Ten champion is made out of.
It is. They won't be the Big Ten champion, but I agree with what you're saying. I mean, they're a good team. I think that their schedule will shake out a little bit more, but you're right. They went to Michigan and got a win. They went to Purdue. That is probably the most impressive thing that they've done so far is in the same week, they went on the road and got 2 wins at Purdue, at Michigan. Those are not 2 easy games. They've already won at Wisconsin. That's a 3rd road game that they've got. And they lost at Maryland by 1 point. They should have actually won that game. But so, I mean, they've got Minnesota at home this week. They'll most likely win that one unless a Turu went crazy or Carr went crazy. They'll most likely win that game. And then they've got at Iowa and then Maryland at home and Michigan State at home and then at Rutgers, at Penn State. Like, their schedule is getting ready to ramp up. They're not going to be, they're not going to be in the top 3 of the Big Ten here in another 2 weeks. They are good. I agree with you, but they're
not going to be in the top 3?
Illinois.
You don't think that they'll be in the top 3?
No, I don't.
Who's going to replace them besides Michigan State? Maryland?
I do. I think so. I mean,
okay, that's one. There has to be who's the 3rd team?
I think Penn State's possible. I think Indiana's possible.
Oh no.
Okay, so tell me this. How do you think this will play out for them? Starting this weekend coming up, they go at Iowa, Maryland at home, Michigan State at home, at Rutgers, at Penn State. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games. 3 of them are on the road, and their 2 home games are Maryland and Michigan State. You think they're going to win both of those?
I think they win 3 out of the 5.
Do you think they win both of those home games?
I do.
You think they beat Maryland and Michigan State?
I do.
Whoo! Jake, record this. Let's play it back next week. Bingo. You're the man.
It's recorded every day, so that's
I know.
care.
I know. I just wanted to make a point of it. No,
you got to take a line. You got to take a stand. I'm taking a stand.
What makes you think they're that good? You think they'll win at Iowa?
I think, for one thing, confidence. They are getting confidence like no other team in this league, I think. They're going on the road and getting wins. They're not a team that's supposed to do this. They're not a Michigan State. They didn't start the season off as number one team in the country. And they're a nobody, and you're asking me, and this is why I think it is confidence over – they have abilities and talent on top of that. But I think they are one of the most, if not the most, confident teams in the Big Ten to go along with their talent.
Okay, and so I want you to. I just want to say this. I just want you to think about this. Do you know how hard it is to keep this momentum going?
Absolutely,
for 3 months.
Absolutely, but you asked me, and I wanted to give an answer. It's easy to say that they're not going to win, and it's boring. It makes it boring, but it's a lot more exciting. I think they're going to win, so might as well take a stand. But we'll see. I mean, it could easily go the other way. It's not like I'm going to be shocked.
No.
If they don't.
I'm just saying, like it is. This is what Michigan has done so many different times, and you'll be able to relate to this. You'll understand this. Michigan has gotten all the confidence in the world right before the Big Ten tournament starts.
And it got taken away from them.
Then they go win the Big Ten. How many times are they in the finals or win the Big Ten tournament? It's ridiculous on teams that are not that great. And so this is a team right now in Illinois. I swear to you, I just feel this way. That they're peaking too early. It's too hard to keep this confidence going throughout the whole for another 2 solid months. They got to keep this going. That's just too hard to do. I'm not saying you give it up. I'm not saying you intentionally don't do it. I'm just saying teams are going to figure them out for one, and they have pulled off a couple of things that are big. Okay, look at it. Michigan's not playing very well. Purdue really can struggle to score the ball.
Purdue,
Wisconsin, we all know Wisconsin's not that great.
But we can nitpick it if we want, but you can also the other way. You can go the opposite direction. Look what Purdue did at home, Michigan State. I
agree with you. And Virginia. Hey, Purdue is one of the toughest places to play in the world. I say that all the time. Tim gets mad at me for saying it. but I'm also going to say they're not unbeatable there either.
Absolutely, I agree. No, absolutely. I'm not saying that they just established this team as the most dominant. I just think that they're going to win. I think that they're getting confident, and as long as they continue having that confidence, I think that they can and will win at home against the better teams. I mean,
do you think they'll win at Iowa?
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one right there. That's a tough place. I mean, Iowa's a good team. Iowa's playing pretty decent at home. Everybody's has win. I mean, I don't think that they'll win that game. No, I think that they will find a way to win one of those 3 road games. I don't know which one it'll be, but I think they win 3 out of those 5 games, though.
Gotcha. I think they lose 3 out of those 5 games,
and it's very possible. It's very possible.
It's possible that they could lose 4 in a row.
Yeah. It is.
They got 4 ranked teams in a row.
It is, and in this league, it absolutely is. I just think that they're going to be a surprise team. They've already kind of surprised us a little bit.
That's my point. I think they did surprise us. I think they've already been the surprise team, and I think now they'll kind of level out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that they were going to be decent. I didn't know that I didn't think that they're going to. I didn't have them like in the top 3.
We didn't know Kofi Coburn was going to be the Green Mile in there. I mean, that guy.
He was pretty decent. That's one of the reasons why I thought they were going to be decent. Like I said, I expected them to be in the tournament. I didn't know that they're going to be a top 3 team. But of course, my top 3, I expected to be Michigan State, Ohio State, and maybe Michigan.
Agreed.
But that's got blown to hell. I mean, Michigan State's up there, but that's it. So yeah,
Ohio State and Michigan are just by far, without question, the ones that are surprising in a negative way.
It's just an unbelievably just disappointing. And you've talked about Ohio State, that there's something going on there, and with Michigan, I don't know what it is with them. If it's just poor play, poor coaching, I don't know.
They're not. Here's their biggest issue. They're not deep, and they don't have their best player playing right now. I mean, Isaiah Livers hasn't played in 5 games or 6 games,
and that's killing them. I mean, that's
totally killing them
because we watched them earlier in this season. Damn, they look good, Todd. They look good at times.
I mean, they got some big guys that can shoot and play in the paint, and they could do so many things, and it's like they've lost all that ability because of one player's out.
Yeah, the real crazy part for them is, you always say, well, when Isaiah Livers comes back, and he has a groin injury, so that's something that he may never be 100% throughout the whole season. But when he does come back, in all reality, I mean, they're 11-8 overall. When he does come back, they may already be so far out of it. They
got some work to do, man.
They may not be able to make the tournament.
Yeah, they've got a lot of work to do. They're going to have to get on the horse and ride hard because they've fallen behind. Same with Ohio State. Ohio State's putting themselves into a hole that your margin for error is out the window now.
Yeah. The good news for them is they were off to such a good start. I mean, they're still 13-7 with some big quality wins. They got a win last night at Northwestern, so that gets them a road win. Their big deal is they've got a tough stretch. They got a stretch coming up right now. They've got Indiana coming in there this Saturday, and then they've got a 2-game road trip, which is at Michigan, at Ohio State. If they need to go win one of those 2 games.
And Indiana needs to win that game. Indiana needs to find a road game.
Indiana does need to win that game.
And so that makes this game so intriguing.
It is.
I mean, Ohio State they've been struggling. They're at home. They cannot absolutely. They're Indiana of last year. They're that team that Indiana team that lost 12 in a row. That was on that bubble. That still, with all that, they had a shot to make the tournament at the end of the season. And I think this Ohio State team is going to be in the same exact position. And this game against the Hoosiers at home for them is an absolute must win. If they lose that game, that may knock them out, Todd.
It might. If
you lose at home now, that may be the final death knell and just pretty much knocks them out. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we could go through so many different big team schedules and be like, oh, my gosh, look how important this game is. Look how important this game is. I mean, it's like a piece of candy over and over again. It's just there are so many scenarios that play out, and all of it's going to come down to the bottom line. Illinois has been the team right now, and you said it. They've been the team right now that has gone on the road and consistently won. And Maryland may be a team that's getting ready to put themselves in that category. That game against Indiana yesterday may put them in that category. But Ohio State and Michigan sure haven't been it, and they've been the surprise because I think everybody expected Michigan State and Ohio State to be up there. But, I mean, they're tied for third last in the Big Ten.
It's mind-boggling.
It's crazy.
I mean, it's kind of reminds you. It reminds you of Indiana last year. I mean, Indiana is not a team anybody expected to lose 12 in a row. It's not a team that they thought was going to be.
It's pretty hard to lose 12 in a row.
It's almost damn impossible when you have because you've got home games built into.
You got to factor in that's probably 6 home games you're losing at home. I mean, that's kind of hard to do.
Yep, and so this year, luckily, Indiana is not in that position. And I don't see them being in that position this year, but fortunately a few other teams are. But how about Tennessee going down to Kansas and losing after Kansas had all those suspensions? They had that Big 12 SEC challenge last week, and that was one of the games. Tennessee gets beat at Kansas while they're dealing with all those suspensions. That was a little surprising. Tennessee, man, they're not the team that I thought they were going to be this year.
No, they can't score. They're terrible. Like, they're not good at all. That didn't surprise me at all. I mean, Kansas was going to rally around that situation. That game didn't surprise. Tennessee's not any good. But I'll tell you, let's go back to what we talked about a week ago. And it's kind of pointless now. But this, after Baylor just goes to Florida and wins, this would have been the week to bump Baylor in front of Gonzaga. Because Gonzaga didn't play anybody that was any good this week.
Well, they did it a week early.
This would have been the week to do it. This would have been the week to do it.
Well, they jumped the gun, but they're there. How about that? That was you go on the road, and that's a tough win, man.
I'm telling you what, Baylor is.
They're looking pretty damn solid, aren't they?
They're so good defensively, and they can make shots. Like, what more can you possibly want? Oh my gosh. I heard one of the most incredible stats I've ever heard in college basketball. Think about this stat. 3 halves in a row. So one half of a game and then the whole next game, and that next game was Florida. Baylor did not give up 1 second chance point.
Wow.
Think about that.
Their defense is what leads them, and defense wins championships. We saw that with Virginia last year. Even though they were not a very talented offensive team, they were so good defensively.
Yeah, between the second half
They
of
have offense.
Oklahoma, it's not like they played teams that don't even exist. The second half of Oklahoma and then on the road at Florida, they don't give up one single second chance point. That's one of the most incredible stats I've ever heard. People don't realize how difficult it is to block out and rebound and not let teams score. I mean, to have that stat is just absolutely incredible.
I mentioned Indiana. We talked about them going to Ohio State coming up, and that could keep Ohio State out of the tournament. Tim points out, ironically and truthfully, Ohio State kept Indiana from making it last year because that's the last game that Indiana had in the Big Ten tournament. Had they won that game, they were probably going to get in, but they were lost to the Buckeyes. So, yeah, that would be a little return favor.
It would be, and there's still too much of the season left for us to be able to say that, but it certainly would put them in a deep hole. I mean, they're already 3-6 in the Big Ten. That's their next game, so that would put them 3-7 with a loss. That's a deep hole.
It is, man. Well, it's been another fun one. We started the week off great, and look forward to having another fun week of it. We got lots to get to this week. Indiana on the road, and we'll get plenty of guests on for you like always. Chronic Hoosier will be with us tomorrow for certain. We'll see what else we can scare up, man. But it's been another one. It's another fun one, Todd.
Yep, I enjoyed it. Coming off of a loss, it's as good as you can feel about your team. Confidence-wise, coming off of losses, I think we could be.
Absolutely, I agree. We'll be back tomorrow with plenty more of it. Thanks a lot to Jake for keeping us on the track. Thanks, Todd, for keeping us on the sane side of things. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle, and I will see you on the radio.